We're back with Game 2 between Captain Telis and Inkars. This is the first official video I'm recording in the new digs, so hopefully everything sounds okay. Hopefully there's not too much of an echo in here. I might still invest in some sound deadening foam, and there's still some stuff to be moved in. So anyway, yeah, hopefully the audio is all good. Hopefully the audio settings didn't bork themselves too badly while I was moving stuff around, but here we are. We've got Ogres versus Bretonnia. Quite interesting color scheme for Bretonnia with that black and red banner. We've got some Knights of the Realm here with Alberic and some Battle Pilgrims as a front line, some men-at-arms, polearms, and spears mixed to back them up. No archers, so just all melee in. Quite a bit of infantry spend, which is interesting. Battle Pilgrims against Ogres definitely very interesting. They're here mostly to counter like Noblars and Pigback Riders, I'd imagine. We've also got some Gorgers and a couple of Bulls with dual weapons. Scrag leading the way. Very interesting style choice. I guess when you have a couple of Gorgers, maybe it makes sense to take a little bit of extra Scragness. But there we go. Two Pegasus Knights as well coming in from the Vanguard. I'm already getting a nice melee engagement underway across the board. Those Pegasus Knights going to drop a unit out on the flank while just a big frontline engagement kicks off. We're going to see the big bombardment from the Great Maw hit this flank here and do some huge AoE damage to those Knights of the Realm. Also does quite a bit of friendly fire to the Piggyback Riders there, though we'll see how that engagement ends up going. Yeah, the Trappers also making their presence felt somewhat, but the quality infantry here for Bretonnia is actually kind of just winning this frontline engagement. And we see some Curse the Midnight Wind from Bretonnia. I didn't even realize. Lord of Heavens, a very cool and stylish choice. Going to significantly nerf melee attack and armor of these units. I mean, not that they haven't much armor to begin with, but that just means all these units doing maximum damage, and the melee attack also helps quite a bit nerf the Ogre's chance to hit, but just generally, Ogre's taking some very significant losses as they kind of get surrounded here by the Knights of the Realm. Alberic also drops down. Of course, Alberic gives everyone in an AoE anti-large with that Braid of Bordelot, which is quite a large 55-meter radius effect range. Yeah, absolutely massive, and especially like, yeah, I mean, the Knights of the Realm, obviously, Pegasus Knights have a little bit to begin with, but like the Battle Pilgrims, for example, right, have great DPS overall. Giving them a little bit of extra anti-large definitely goes a long way to help them fight stuff like Ogre Bulls and even Gorgers. So, love the pick of Alberic here. Super smart choice against the other faction, which is weak to anti-large, right? Both these factions are, you know, countered to a degree by just taking as much anti-large as you can. But interesting to see the sort of dual threat, anti-infantry and anti-large of the Pilgrims. Ogre's definitely not out of this, though. They got a little bit of a rally going here with Scrag, some Gorgers being able to pick off a few units. Got some Trappers coming back as well. Pigback Riders coming back. And Bretonnia doesn't have too much resource to actually chase all these units off. Maybe could have dispatched one Pegasus Knight, but even then, a few of those units rally, kind of come together to fight the Pegasus Knight unsupported. It would probably go badly for those Bretonnia Knights, so they're going to stay close for the time being. Try and deck these regrouped Trappers. And a few Unbreakable Gorgers pulling back as well. These Gorgers here get a nice little rear charge on those Spearmen at Arms. Little Brain Gobbler. Nice cheap leadership debuff just to quickly break them. But let's see how the rest of it goes. Oh, we're going to see a nice, what is it, the Trident of Manon? Yes, Wrath of Manon here. The leadership damage and AoE damage cuts through a few of these units, helps the Terror Route kick in. Another Curse of the Midnight Wind as well. I love the new effect of that. I haven't honestly used the debuff of Heavens. Curse of the Midnight Wind is a pretty good spell that at certain points in the game has been decent, but these days generally taking damage spells is usually just better, but I don't know, maybe it's time for the buffs and debuffs to have a little bit of resurgence, at least from spells. I mean, like buff and debuff abilities, if they don't have max charges, are generally pretty good for characters or units to have, but when it comes to spells, generally it's better, your Winds of Magic are more efficiently spent on damage, which, boom, big old Maw pops there. It's going to do some massive AoE damage, but Alberic himself trident in hand. Gonna lance down the big brute, Scrag, and his pot, having to flee away. And the pot just belching out some fume in Alberic's face just to send a message there. But with Scrag going down, I don't see much hope for the Ogres, although they are rallying a handful of units here together and breaking some of the Bretonnian forces. This block that's got the Grail Relic supporting leadership, giving a little bit of extra attack as well. Ooh, that Dismember. Direct damage, doing a nice job taking down a few of the more of the Pegasus Knights. But ultimately, Scrag is pretty hopeless here. And, yeah, the Grail Relic plus these few remaining infantry probably can deal with whatever is left. No problem. Mostly just some Gorgers. And these Pegasus Knights plus Alberic could probably just drop in a nice hit on those Gorgers. And yep, looks like the non-unbreakable units for the Ogres hit army losses. Gorger's gonna honorably throw in the towel there, and a victory for Bretonnia and the Jizero banner. Very, very cool, I have to say. The black and red Bretonians looks a little sinister, but quite cool. And yeah, overall Bretonnian units performed admirably all the way across the board. Most units doing a decent job paying for themselves. The Chief Halberds are quite nice to have in a matchup like this, and the Chief Spears also. Some of them do a decent job considering how cheap they are. It's not too hard for them to pay for themselves if they're fighting the right targets. And of course the Knights of the Realm, Pegasus Knights, all pretty good. I mean, Pegasus Knights maybe a little bit lower on raw damage value, but tactically it's nice to have that mobile strike force. And supported by Alberic, who himself gets some pretty good value, plus a bunch of support value distributed from all these units. And for Captain Telis here, yeah, it's a interesting build for sure. I think Pigback Riders are definitely one that makes a lot of sense. You know, the Bulls with dual weapons have that little bit of extra anti-infantry. Gorgers, Quad Gorgers is definitely a way to go. I don't know. Gorgers can be pretty good, but this is one matchup where they are pretty vulnerable to the anti-large, you know, high-damage Knights without much armor or melee defense. Like, yes, the Unbreakable's nice, and get some nice synergy with Scrag, but overall, yeah, I think probably better off to go maybe the... I don't know, Yetis, the physical resistance doesn't matter as much, or at all, really, in this matchup anymore, so... yeah, thinking about things, even just like the Iron Guts, honestly, and it's been a while since I played this matchup, but just thinking through a little bit out loud, yeah, I mean, even the Iron Guts have decent AP, the extra armor definitely helps, even more so over something like Man-Eaters, honestly. Like, yes, you get some anti-large, a little bit higher damage, but for less cost, and that 100 armor definitely makes a difference. It means that the non-AP Knights, sort of your mid-tier Knights of the Realm, Pegasus Knights, are going to be a lot less effective, whereas anything that has lower armor is going to get punished by them. Now, granted, you know, the higher-level Man-Eaters have good enough combat stats, they can kind of stand and fight a little bit, but it's also not super efficient. Gold Bags Man-Eaters, specifically with that extra armor, maybe worth looking into. But yeah, I mean, I think most people would probably go like more pressure-based here with that elite anti-large AP cavalry, 120 armor. Can definitely stand and fight with the Bretonnians. You know, maybe throw in the odd Thunder Tusk here. I mean, that's a lot of spend on a handful of units, but just take a bunch of Noblars around them. But the Thunder Tusk, same thing here. Like, it's got missile resistance plus armor and just great AoE damage. The Frostbite also helps kind of control the cavalry's movements a little bit, and you can deal damage at range, which is nice, definitely nice. So, nice to see something a little bit off meta, but sometimes the meta is that way for a reason, right? But anyway, that is Game 2 between these two, evening them up to 1-1, so we'll check out Game 3 tomorrow. Be sure to tune in for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.